Good morning. Today we're going to do a tangle or collection of tangles for the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. The idea is from an indigenous artist from southwestern Ontario named Lorraine Thomson that I took maybe 3 years ago. So hopefully you have your pen. We're going to use some orange as an accent for a change. And I have a feather string that I'll be using today. First, we're going to start with a big deep breath in through our nose, holding it, and then out through our mouth. So when we go to take our next breath in, it's going to be deeper. We're going to make sure we're comfortable in our chair. We're going to make sure that we're concentrating in this moment here and allowing our mind to take a break. First step, the Zentangle method, is gratitude and appreciation. So I'm appreciative of the history that we learned and are in the midst of correcting, and how the indigenous peoples have been treated. And to study them further, you would learn how much they have actually contributed into the Canadian way of doing things. So we're going to start with our pencils. And I just want you, with the template you have, you can sketch out a feather. You could just do a larger triangle. Pause the video if you need to. I'm going to carry on ahead because I have mine ready in front. My pencil, I'm just going to start segmenting from the breaks in the sides of the feather to break up into sections where I can put different tangles. The one at the tip is going to be a whole section in and of itself. Then I'm going to put the pencil away, and I'm going to grab my pen, and I'm going to pick any of the sections I have in front of me. I'm going to work my way up the feather just to make it easier for you guys to follow on the video. Most of the ones I'm picking are ones you have done before if you've done a class with me, or they are in the introductory video that is also posted here. So I'm going to start in this section here, and I'm going to do the first and always tangle, the crescent moon. So the crescent moon teaches us aura. We're going to start with a little ladybug shape, semicircle, half moon. And we're going to do it around the perimeter of the feather or the section that you have. And depending on how big you do your crescent moon, you want to leave that same distance or distance times 2 before you do another one, because we're going to aura these, so we need to have room to do that. I'm going to ink in this first section so you know where I'm going. And now I have all my ladybug shapes done. Some of them are bigger than others. Yours might be different than mine as well, and that's okay, because everybody's going to do it the way their hand draws it, and nobody else will do it like anybody else, because nobody is like anybody else. Then we're going to ink in our ladybug shapes. I'm gonna do most of mine black, and then I might leave one of them and do it orange. I'm just gonna swap out pens, help this go a little faster. I have a thicker tip pen. It's the same color ink. You may not have that. You can take more time by pausing the video, but I'm trying to be conscious of the time you may have for class or a lesson. And the perks of the video class is that you can do it in segments or parts in case there's a break or an interruption or you need to go back to it. Take more time with it. Well, like I said, I'm going to ink in one of them in orange because orange is going to be the accent. It's a very symbolic color for the indigenous peoples. So we're going to keep that going today. Okay, the next tip for crescent moon after you've done your ladybug shapes or your semicircles is to aura them. So pick one to start, and you're just going to echo the line or aura the line from the start of the base all the way over. And you're going to work your way all the way around your section, doing one aura each, trying to make sure that they're all about the same distance from the ladybug shape on each of them. And it may not be perfect, but what is? Good to aim for doing it your best, but your best is always good enough. Once you've done all of them one time, we're going to start doing it a second time, conscious of making the aura about the same thickness as the first one. Mine are not all the same, but that's okay. And if you find that you're having a harder time doing it, then try with a softer and a slower stroke. And the focus with which you do that will help you to be more precise in your line. And it also helps you to learn how to control your pen better. Okay, so I have some that are getting very close together. So whenever I do my third aura in the cycle, I'm not going to cross any other lines I've drawn. So if you start here, I'm going to start at the top of this one. And I'm going to go to the middle, and there's still room there to do a third. And then from that middle, do that. And that, and this one is too close to start at the bottom, so I'm going to start off this aura for this one. And I'm only going to go as far as that aura. And then I'm going to echo that as far as I can onto this aura. And then I'm going to echo that as far as I can onto this one. And that. And then I have all of my shapes and my auras connected. So the next stage is that you start to trace the space inside. And where the points meet, you're trying to meet the point with your pen, and again, conscious of trying to keep the aura the same size or distance from the line before it. And as you can see, I went inside the line. I don't need them to connect up. And we'll start to have a really cool effect the closer we get to the middle. All right, crescent moon, done. Again, if you need more space or you want to focus better, then you can pause your video. I'm going to ink in my next section by tracing over the pencil line I did earlier. Maybe I'm going to zoom in a bit too, so you guys can see a little better. And the next one I'm going to do is printemps. We did this one before too, and it looks like a cinnamon roll. We're going to start with a circle, and we're going to go out from the circle. Let's go once around, twice around, and then we're going to tuck it into itself like that. And then we're going to add weight, which just means tracing half of the line, and you always try to do it on one side of your printemps. And we're going to do another one, but we're going to do it close to the first one so that we learn how to draw underneath. So we're going to do our circle, and then we're going to do a line around it, and the first loop should be okay, but the second loop is going to bump up against it and tuck under. And I'm going to lift my pen when it's under, and I'm going to go to the opposite side of the one I've already drawn, and then I'm going to continue my line, and then I'm going to tuck it in the way I did on the first one. And I'm going to go back and add weight. And then I'm going to continue to draw more. And if you do your dot pretty close to the ones you've already drawn, it's easier to get to the point where you're imagining drawing them the way they need to be so that you're drawing under. And if you're not close enough, that's okay too. I could do a whole nother one over here. And tuck it in and add the weight. And what you want to do is fill your whole section with printemps as best you can. And if you bump into the one beside it, then you know to lift your pen instead of crossing over the line. And add your weight the way you would. Do one in the middle here. Again, you just have to imagine where that line would continue before it tucks in. Add weight. It's okay if we have little gaps. We can ink those in or leave them blank. But it's your tile, it's your feather, it's your drawing. So it's going to look exactly the way you can do it. And it's no point comparing it to anybody else's, because they can't do you or draw like you any more than you can draw like them. Even with the same instruction, it shows you how unique people are. That with simple steps and the same tools, the outcome is always unique to the artist. And that's cool, I think, because everybody brings something different to the mix. Careful to lift my pen when I get too close to the sides of another printemps, which is the French word for spring because it looks a bit like a spring, but generally the names of tangles in the method aren't supposed to mean anything because they're not supposed to actually end up looking like anything. Just supposed to be enough to give you a hint of what it could be. But the process of drawing and quieting your mind is really what they're going for in the method. You could change the size of your printemps. You could do little tiny ones. You can do bigger ones. It's all up to you. You can even try doing them in the opposite direction. Let's see what that does. Instead of going around the circle clockwise, you can go counterclockwise. And maybe it's different holding your pen that way. I can feel my shoulders getting tight, so I'm going to relax my hand and regrip my pen a little more gently. Remembering to take the breath. And quiet your mind and just focus on where the ink is touching the paper in this moment. And if you bump, that's fine too. There are no mistakes in Zentangle. There are just artist's changes or adjustments to the pattern. You could have some quiet music playing. You could mute the video and just follow along with the strokes visually. There's a lot of different ways that you can figure out how you like to do it. All right, I think I'm pretty full there. So I'm going to move on to my next section. I'm going to ink it in. And this time we're going to do one called Shattuck. And for Shattuck, you're going to start by doing, I'm going to turn mine this way for a while because I want the lines of my Shattuck to go along the stem with the feather. And I'm just going to break it up into 3 as kind of equal sections, if that makes sense. I'm going to draw a vertical line, and then I'm going to echo it beside it. I'm going to do the same thing again, a little bit further over. All right. And then I'm going to start in my middle section, and in this corner, and I'm gonna draw an arcing line or like a rainbow kind of line from this point to that point. And then I'm gonna imagine that halfway between here is here, so I'm gonna do a dot, and then halfway between the dot and the top is there, and halfway between the dot and the bottom is there. And I'm just gonna, and this is only with the first one, I'm gonna do the rainbow line. There. Now, on the next one, because we have this line to build off of with the arc, we're going to start at this top and we're going to do an arc this way. And then we're going to echo the line again. And it's about, maybe it's longer, so you want to do the half, 3/4, same thing from this top, the rainbow line. And then maybe 3/4, half, 1/4, top, rainbow line, 1/4, half, 3/4. This one will go to the corner. And this one's going to be cut short, but we know what the idea is. And we're going to look at this side, and you can do two different ideas with Shattuck. You can either echo the line, so on this side I will echo it, which means you know where this point went from this corner to here. So we're going to mark it there at the same time, and we're going to go to this corner for our first arc. And then we're going to match this line. We're going to match this one, and we're going to match this one. And then from here, we're going to go away to the far line. So far line from here is here. And again, 3/4, half, 1/4. And then we'll echo this line. And this one. And this one. And you can see that it becomes a bit of a meta pattern, and the two sides together, drawn independently, start to look like they form a shape. Again, we're going to go from the point where this one meets, and it meets at the outside line, so we're going to draw our arc to the outside line. And again, 3/4, half, 1/4. And then same, this one goes from this back to the line, and then we're going to echo there. I'm a little off. That's okay. And then we know this one goes here and this one goes there. All right, so that's two lines of Shattuck. And then if we do the opposite to mirroring that we did here on this side, so if this one goes, we'll start at the top here. If this is our arcing line going to the top, then on this side, we're going to use that and we're going to arc it the other way. And this line, see, so this one goes here, boom, and this one goes here, boom. So the same thing we're going to do it the opposite direction. And then to build off the arcing line, we're going to do our 1/4 and our half and our 3/4. And we're going to try and do an opposite stroke so that it looks like the line is twisting whenever you try and follow it from the previous one. So again, this line's here, but I'm going this way. This line's here, but going this way. And 1/4, half, And we have Shattuck. All right, to mirror Shattuck on this side, I'm going to do something else that has the same kind of 3 sections, except instead of a double line, it's just going to be a single one. But first we're going to draw the vertical lines to break up the space. And then we're going to imagine drawing an angled line, a straight line, and a downward angled line to give the impression that it folds. So the line in the middle is straight, horizontal across, and the ones on either side are angled down. And you're trying to keep the band of it as thick as all the way through. Same thing, angled line, straight line, angled line. And you want to give yourself a bit of a gap between them. Straight, angled line, a bit of a gap, angled line, straight, angled line, and angled, straight, angled. And again, it's okay if yours isn't the same as mine. This one's going to get cut off, so we're going to go angled line, the straight one is across the feather, and the angled line goes down. And on the front side here, because we didn't have enough, we're going to start in the middle where this band would be with their horizontal lines, and then from there we'll just do the angled lines so everything is full. Okay, so you have a lot of different bands. What we're going to do is we're going to ink in the bands we did. So I'm going to ink in this section, and this section, and I'm going to skip a line, and I'm going to ink in this one and this one, and I'm going to skip a line, and I'm going to ink in this one, and this one, and same thing, you're going to do the same. So we're going to take some time to ink in our sections right now, and then I'll show you what we do next. Again, I've changed pens to a thicker one, so it might take you a little bit longer to do yours. If you don't want to ink it in, you could do a different pattern in the section to distinguish them from the plain. You want to just do circles or squares or triangles to make sure that you have a contrast between you could even do a different color if you want. We can add color today, so color's good. So maybe a pencil crayon or a marker, so you don't have to do it all with your pen. This one is called Braze, B-R-A-Z-E. When you're inking in or coloring in, just take the time to make sure there's no little white spots where you didn't put any ink. Again, slowing down, being careful with the stroke, and just focusing so much on something so simple. Let your brain take a break. If you're getting tight or you're all scrunched up, then make sure that you relax. Take a deep breath. Loosen the grip on your pen or pencil, crayon or pencil, whatever you're using, because you can do it with anything. You can always turn the page to make sure that the stroke of your pen is comfortable for you, because it's not supposed to cause you more stress. It's supposed to cause you less when you tangle. So you always want to make sure that your hand and your body's in a comfortable position, well supported, feet on the ground. All right, so when you have all of your sections colored in, I'm going to change back to my fine tipped pen. And the next step on braze is to do a very fine line on either side of the thick band, and you want to do it at the same angle as the line so that you can mimic the same dimensional effect. But you're going to do the inside of one and the outside of another. And really you're just orroing the line or echoing the line or the band. And if your bands are too close together that you can't do two lines, then just do one. And if they're far apart, then do three. Because the pattern and the tangle is yours in the moment to do with as you wish. All right, that's braze. Now we're going to do another section. I'm going to ink in this one above the braze. You can do the top or the bottom as you see fit. But we're going to do enzeppel, which is one of the other videos I've done. I'm not sure if it's posted, but it looks like this one right here. This one right here. Okay. Back in place. So what enzeppel, you're just going to draw straight lines randomly around the section you're trying to break up into smaller pieces. In this instance, it's okay to cross the lines because the drawing of the lines is only the first step in the tangle, and at this stage it's okay for them to intersect. And once you have your section all broken into smaller parts, what Inzeppel does is it is retracing the line, and we learn takeoff and land. So it's going to look like we've squished a balloon into each of these sections. So I'll start here in this triangular part, okay? And I'm gonna retrace the line that I've drawn of the triangle, but as I get to the corner, I'm gonna cut it short and sort of round it. And then I'm gonna retrace this line on the way to the corner, going slow so that I don't miss my mark. And then I'm gonna cut the corner and sort of round it. And I'm gonna do that all the way around. And I'm gonna round that and go back to my starting point. And I'm going to go to the section beside it, and I'm going to retrace my line, and I'm going to cut that point off and round it, and retrace the outside, and cut the corner to the corner, and I'm going to round that off too. And you're going to do all the sections like this, retracing your line till you get to the point where two lines meet, and you're just going to round off the corner instead. And maybe you have a few sections and maybe you have many, but the principle is the same. When you get to the corner, you cut it short, you round the line, and you retrace the line you drew before. And eventually you sort of get either like a cobblestone walkway kind of effect, or it's like I said, the balloon kind of in the wedged into a box or a section. So trace the line, cut the corner short, round it, retrace the line, cut the corner short, retrace the line, cut the corner short, and round it. And as you retrace the lines, it gets darker, and then the points that are rounded start to have a lighter ink, so they stand out and are a little bit more of an accent. And I'm just going to go all the way around until I've done it on all the sections of the space. And if you cut one too short, that's all right. There are different sizes balloons. There's no wrong, there's just changes to the pattern. It's an artist's prerogative to do as they wish. All right, so once you've done all of your sections, you can keep it this way, where you see sort of like the webby effect in the corners where all the points intersect, or you can ink it in. That's totally your preference. So I'll leave it up to you what you would like to do. Or you could add shade or color to one or the other to add that contrast. Okay, next one we're going to do here is called Flux in Tipple. So flux is a leaf shape. First I'm going to ink in the section. And for flux, it's sort of like a warped teardrop. So watch as I do it first. So we go up and like a big round bulb of, and then when we come up, maybe it looks more like a comma or an apostrophe, but that's the idea. All right, and then we're going to do a stem in the middle about 1/3 of the way, and I do 2 dots. And then from that same point or somewhere close, I'm going to draw another one. And we can stack them. Third of the way for the stem. We can go the other way, which usually adds a new dimension. We can do them little or big. And if it's little, maybe you only have room for 1 dot. And basically any point that has a V shape or 2 intersecting lines is where you can start another flux. Do it down this way. They can be skinny or thin. But all of them sort of sprout off from the same point, or at least try to. That one looks more like a balloon, and that's okay too. And you're just going to work at filling the space with your flux. All right. And when you get to the point where you probably can't put a full flux in, then we're going to add the tipple. And tipple is just random orbs or circles, circular shapes. But because there's no perfect in Zentangle, we call them orbs instead of circles, because circles generally give you the idea that they should be all the way around. So any of the little gaps or interstices, which is the fancy word for spaces or gaps, we're going to put a circle, and then we're going to ink in the difference. If it's too small to fit a circle, then you could ink it all in, or you could do a really tiny orb. And if, like this spot here, let me see, I'm going to do a little tiny flux, and then I can do a big orb, and then a smaller orb beside it, and it just fills in the space. And then I'm going to ink in. All right. So go around and see where you can fit some tipple in. Ink in the difference. The trick is when you're drawing your tipple to fill the gaps, that you want the circle or the ends of the circle to go all the way to the line. So if I start on this line and go to the top, and then I want to touch this line too. And it's not exactly round, it's more oblong whenever you do something like that. But then it fills the space, in my estimation, a little more evenly. just conscious of seeing where the big white spaces are. And some of them I leave and some of them I don't, but it's your own discretion. Okay, so that's flux and tipple. And we have one section left. This one was a tangle I hadn't seen before. It's called Trail of Tears, and it was created by an indigenous artist. But at the time they did not say what the artist's name was, so I can't share that with you. But what it looks like around the top of your feather, we're going to do some random tear shapes, and these are more teardroppy or raindroppy or water droppy, and you just want to do them randomly throughout the space. And it's okay if they're not all the same size, because trails and teardrops are not all the same size. I think I could do a little one in there. All right, I'm going to stop there, and if I need to add one, I will. And then at the top of each of the teardrops, you're just going to round and ink in the top triangle of it. All right, so we have our teardrops, and now the trail part is just 3 lines that sort of meet up with the center of one teardrop and then connect it to another. And you can make them straightish, or you can make them wavy. We're just going to draw 3 connecting lines between the teardrops. They can go off, they can go through, they can go around. I'm going to draw another teardrop, because I don't like that the line ends abruptly at the center point of the feather. All right, so all the tangles are drawn now. We have our full feather, best we can see. And I'm gonna try and add some shade. So we're gonna take our pencils, and when you're shading or adding shade, you want to hold your pencil a little more flat, and gently between, and you just want to use the side of the pencil. We're going to do crescent moon first. And I'm just going to add a little bit of shade to the white space. Where the two auras come together. Again, turning my page to make the stroke comfortable. And then going to find that first printemps. We'll shade that next. So this one here. And you find the one that is not sits full by itself. And we're just going to add a little ink again. Our pencil flat. We're just going to add some shade to the outside of it. And we're going to look around, and anytime that we have a printemps that is sitting over another one, we're just going to add a little shade to the side of it. And if there's some gaps that you didn't have a printemps, you can put a little shade in there. If you want to add color, I have an orange chalk pastel. You could add some of that to your printemps. At the end, I'm going to do the periphery of the feather in orange. So it looks like this. This is the one I did in July a couple years ago in the class by Lorraine Thomson, the artist I spoke of earlier. For Shattuck, if you just add a little bit of shade along either side of the segments that you did, the vertical lines, on the top and the bottom, or the right and the left, depending on how you're holding your paper. And for braids, same idea. We're going to do the shade on the white part, down the outsides, not the vertical or horizontal part in the middle, just the shade on the outsides. And for flux, we're just going to do a stroke of shade on the stems of all our leaves. Again, holding the pencil lightly and on the side. And for the tipple, if you have one that's big enough, you do like a little smiley face at the bottom of the circle. And you can add shade dimension to them too. And we're going to use that same principle with the Trail of Tears. We're just going to do a smiley face at the bottom of the teardrop. And if it's not exactly at the bottom, that's okay too. And for Inseppel, I think we'll just retrace the major lines that intersect space, and just add some graphite to that. All right, we'll go back, we'll get our tortillon, we're gonna buff out the graphite by doing little circles. You can use a Q-tip, you can use your finger. If you don't have a tortillon, you could just have a bit of paper that you roll into a circle. And you want to try and work the shade all the way into the center of where those points match. Maybe it doesn't show up so well on the video, but on your own tile you'll be able to see that. It sort of adds the dimension like you're falling into the center. And we'll go to printemps, this one here. And we're gonna soften the graphite around the exterior of our printemps shapes. Any place where you put pencil, you just want to soften it with the tortillon or your finger. And if you didn't put any shade on, that's okay too. You could use coloring pencils to add dimension. And the chalk pastels work the same way. For Shattuck, just gonna for braise, I'm just going to buff it out to the right and to the left of the center point, so they are the ones that have the angle, and leave the center line that was straight across without any shade to accentuate the bend in the line. And flux, I'm just going to retrace the stems, draw some shade into the middle. And for the tipple, I just retrace the smile. It sort of gives a two-tone effect to your orbs. And same thing, you'll buff circles on the Trail of Tears. And if you leave the top half white, and it sort of gives another dimension to the shape. All right. So we've got all the shading done. Now this is when you get to embellish. If you want to color yours, use the orange. I think I'm going to use my gel pen, and I'm going to try and add just a pop of orange. Maybe two. With the gel pens, you have to be careful not to rub your hand through it because it takes that much longer to dry. So it's important that you rotate around so that the heel of your hand is always farther away from the part you just inked in. going to do the inking in of Enzeppel with the orange, just in the spots where all those lines intersect. And then I'm going to go back and add or use my orange pencil crayon to shade the stones or the blocks or the sections. And for that, I'm just going to pick the same side or one side of each of the sections, and I'm just going to put a little bit of a chalk pastel down. And then I'm going to buff it out. Right now, I'm just trying to clean off the tip of my tortillon because it's got a lot of the gray graphite. It's not gonna accentuate. I don't want it to mute the orange that we tried to add. And then I just try and retrace the shape of the section it's in, or part of the shape, just to give it maybe the orange I use is a chalk pastel, so it smudges really easily. If you're using pencil crayon, then same thing, like you're adding shade, use a little bit, a light touch at the side, and then you'll be able to smudge it around. You can just color them in whole too. There's a couple I didn't get. All right, I'm gonna take my chalk pastel and I'm just gonna do the perimeter of the feather. I'm just going to buff out the orange so it looks smoother. Careful not to smudge it into any place where I don't want it to go. Again, small circles work best to spread out either the graphite or the pastel. All right. That's pretty much it. So we're going to do our chop, which is the artist mark. I'm going to claim it as our own. I'm done all my tangling, and I'm going to pick a spot somewhere on my feather, somewhere on my tile, somewhere on my paper, and I'm going to use a square here in Ends Apple, and I'm going to do my initials. You can do yours in any way you can. That's my artist mark. I'm going to hold it. And we're going to, again, take a big deep breath. And appreciate the time that we took to have a little consideration for the indigenous peoples of North America and their experience. And the quiet time we took for ourselves. It doesn't have to be this long. You can do 2 minutes, you can do 10 minutes. Then, okay. I look forward to seeing what you guys did. Bye for now.